The call that changed everything. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that settles into your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I stood in the middle of our kitchen, barefoot on imported Italian marble, my phone pressed to my ear, staring at the reflection of myself in the stainless steel refrigerator door. I looked calm, polished, put together, but my heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it through the line. "Say that again," I said quietly. On the other end, my husband exhaled, slow and controlled, the way he did during boardroom negotiations or press interviews. The way he did when he'd already made up his mind. "I said," Daniel repeated, "you don't need to come to the airport tomorrow." I swallowed. "Daniel, we planned this trip for months. Paris. The investor gala. You told me." "I know what I said," he cut in. "Plans changed." That was his favorite phrase. 2 words that usually meant entire lives were about to be rearranged. I waited, gripping the edge of the marble island. "So when should I be ready instead?" "Later flight." Another pause. Then he said it. "I'm taking Claire." The room tilted. "Your secretary?" I asked, though my mouth already felt numb. "She's not just my secretary," Daniel replied sharply. "She's my executive assistant. And she's essential to the meetings." Essential. I tasted the word like something sour. "And I'm not?" I asked. Silence again. He hated emotional questions. He always had. "Elizabeth," he said, using my full name the way he did when he wanted to sound reasonable. "This isn't personal." I laughed once, short, brittle. "You're flying across the Atlantic with another woman and telling your wife to stay home. How is that not personal?" "You're overreacting." There it was. The phrase that had slowly replaced "I love you" in our marriage. I hung up before he could say anything else. I stood there for a long time after the call ended, staring at the dark screen of my phone. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Los Angeles skyline glowed in the distance, the city humming with ambition and secrets. This house, our house, was worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. 12 bathrooms. A wine cellar curated by a sommelier flown in from Napa. Art on the walls that I wasn't allowed to touch without gloves. And yet I had never felt smaller. When Daniel and I met, none of this existed. Back then, he was just a brilliant, relentless man with a startup and borrowed confidence. We met at a charity fundraiser in San Francisco. One of those rooftop events with overpriced champagne and people pretending to care about causes they barely understood. He'd spilled his drink on my dress. "I'm so sorry," he'd said, panicked. "I swear I'm not usually this clumsy." I smiled. "Good. Because I don't usually forgive red wine." We laughed. He asked me out the next day. Back then he listened. Really listened. Asked about my work, my dreams, my family in Ohio. Told me he wanted to build something that mattered. And when his company exploded, when the headlines started calling him the youngest self-made billionaire in tech, he looked at me across a cluttered apartment and said, "None of this works without you." I believed him. God help me, I did. Claire hadn't existed back then. Claire appeared 3 years ago, right around the time Daniel's company went public. She was efficient, quiet, always dressed perfectly, tailored blazers, sleek ponytail, heels she somehow walked in effortlessly. "She keeps my life from falling apart," Daniel told me once at a dinner party. I smiled politely and said, "That's my job." He didn't laugh. First, I tried to like her. I really did. I invited her to company events, included her in conversations, told myself I was being ridiculous. But there were moments, little ones, like how she always knew his schedule better than I did. How she'd text him late at night. How she once answered his phone while he was in the shower, our shower, and didn't seem surprised to hear my voice. Still, I never imagined this. The airport. Paris. Me being replaced. The next morning I woke before sunrise. Daniel's side of the bed was empty. I padded down the hallway, past framed magazine covers with his face on them, past rooms we never used, until I heard voices drifting up from the foyer. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, Claire was saying. I froze at the top of the stairs. Daniel stood below, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, passport in hand. Claire stood beside him, slim carry-on at her feet, coat draped over one arm. She laughed softly at something he said. I felt like I was watching strangers. Daniel looked up and saw me. For a split second, something flickered across his face. Guilt? Annoyance? I couldn't tell. "Elizabeth," he said. "You're up early." "So are you," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Claire turned toward me, surprise flashing across her face, then quickly masked by professionalism. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale," she said politely. Mrs. Hale. The name felt like a title I was about to lose. "Going somewhere?" I asked Daniel. "You know where I'm going." "Yes," I said, descending the stairs slowly. "With her." The tension thickened the air. Daniel checked his watch. "We don't have time for this." That was when something inside me hardened. "No," I said. "You don't." As the car pulled away from the driveway minutes later, Daniel inside, Claire beside him, I stood alone in the doorway of a house that suddenly felt too quiet, too big, too hollow. I should have cried. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I smiled, because for the first time in years I realized something important. If my billionaire husband thought he could replace me without consequences, he had no idea who he married. What I found when he left. The house didn't feel empty after Daniel left. It felt watched. I locked the door behind me long after the car disappeared down the palm-lined driveway. For a moment I rested my forehead against the cool glass, breathing slowly, grounding myself. Somewhere deep inside, instinct whispered that something had changed permanently. I ignored it at first. I went through the motions. Coffee I didn't drink. Breakfast I didn't taste. The television murmured morning news about market openings and international summits. Daniel's world, not mine. But my phone remained silent. No text. No apology. No reassurance. By noon the silence screamed. I wandered into Daniel's study, the one room in the house that still smelled like him. Leather, cedarwood, and faint traces of his cologne. This was where billion-dollar deals were born, where lives were reshaped with signatures. I wasn't supposed to be here. Daniel didn't forbid me outright, but he never invited me in either. I told myself I was just looking for a book. That was a lie. I went to his desk. The top drawer was locked. That alone made my chest tighten. In 10 years of marriage, Daniel had never locked a drawer in our home. I stared at it for a long moment, then reached for the small silver key hidden beneath the desk blotter, one I'd seen him use countless times. Slid in smoothly. The drawer opened. Inside were folders. Not business contracts, those were stored digitally, encrypted beyond reach. These were printed documents. Personal. I pulled one out. Offshore holdings. Cayman Islands. My stomach dropped. I flipped through pages filled with account numbers, shell corporations, complex transfers. Money moving like shadows between entities I didn't recognize. Some were dated years back. Others were recent. Very recent. I'd always known Daniel was careful with money. But this wasn't careful. This was hidden. I kept digging. Another folder. Confidential. Legal counsel. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were emails between Daniel and a law firm I'd never heard of. One specializing in asset protection, divorce litigation, and international financial shielding. Divorce. The word blurred on the page. I sank into the leather chair behind the desk, pulse roaring in my ears. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't about a business trip. This had been planned. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments I'd brushed aside for years. Daniel canceling anniversaries last minute. Daniel insisting certain investments be kept separate. Daniel changing passwords. And Claire. Always Claire. She'd never worn a wedding ring. She'd never talked about a personal life. She was always available, always calm, always one step ahead. By morning, something inside me had crystallized into resolve. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I needed answers. Real ones. I called Margaret the next day. Margaret was my lawyer, not Daniel's. A woman I'd hired years ago for estate planning, mostly to appease my parents. She'd always struck me as sharp, discreet, and quietly formidable. She answered on the second ring. "Elizabeth," she said, "is everything all right?" "No," I replied, "but I need to know how bad things could get." There was a pause. Then, "Come to my office." Margaret's office overlooked downtown Los Angeles. Glass walls, muted colors, the kind of place where people made confessions they couldn't undo. I laid everything out. The airport, Claire, the documents. Margaret listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she folded her hands. "Elizabeth," she said carefully, "your husband has been preparing for a separation." My breath caught. "For how long?" "Based on what you've described?" She hesitated. "At least a year. Possibly longer." A year. I'd hosted charity galas, supported his brand, played the smiling billionaire wife, while he'd been quietly planning my erasure. "And Claire?" I asked. Margaret's eyes sharpened. "She's more than an assistant." I nodded. "I know. She may not be the reason," Margaret continued, "but she's part of the strategy." The word stung more than a fair ever could. Strategy. What do I do? I asked. Margaret leaned back. "You stop being reactive, and you start protecting yourself." By the time I left her office, I had a checklist. Copies of documents, independent financial audits, a private investigator, and most importantly, silence. Daniel didn't call for 2 days. When he finally did, he sounded distant. Distracted. "Paris is hectic," he said. "Meetings non-stop." "How's Claire?" I asked lightly. A beat too long passed. "She's efficient," he replied. I smiled to myself. The private investigator's name was Tom Reed. Former federal. Quiet. Expensive. He met me at a cafe in Santa Monica, blending in seamlessly among surfers and freelancers. "You sure you want to know?" he asked after I explained. "Yes," I said without hesitation. He nodded. "Then don't expect to like what you find." 3 days later, Tom called. "I've got something," he said. I closed the bedroom door before responding. "Tell me." "Your husband and Claire aren't just traveling together," he said. "They've been sharing accommodations." My throat tightened. "Since when?" "Over a year," Tom replied. "Different cities. Always careful. Always discreet." A year. The same year Daniel started hiding money. "And there's more," Tom added. I braced myself. "They're connected financially," he said. "Shell companies. Shared interests. She's not just an employee. She's a beneficiary." The room spun. "She's been positioning herself," Tom continued. "Not like a mistress. Like a partner." I sank onto the edge of the bed. "That's not all," he said. Of course it wasn't. "Claire's name appears in documents tied to an acquisition Daniel hasn't announced yet," Tom said. "A massive one." "What kind?" He paused. "The kind that could put Daniel in serious legal trouble if exposed improperly." For the first time since the airport, fear wasn't the loudest thing in my chest. Power was. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, city lights glittering below like a promise. Daniel thought he was steps ahead. He thought I was just the woman he left behind. He was wrong. Because while he was flying first class across the Atlantic with his carefully chosen replacement, I was uncovering the truth. And soon he would realize something far more dangerous than betrayal. He'd underestimated his wife. The truth they never expected me to learn. The email arrived at 2:14 a.m. No subject line. No signature. Just a single sentence. He never planned to leave you with anything. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, the glow of my phone slicing through the darkness. For a moment I thought it was spam, or worse, paranoia finally catching up to me. Then another message came in. Check the trust documents filed in Delaware last November. My fingers trembled as I forwarded the email to Tom. Within minutes my phone rang. You got that too, didn't you? He asked. So it's real, I said. It's very real, Tom replied. And whoever sent it knows things only insiders would know. Claire. Possibly, he said. But there's another option. Who? Someone who's scared. By morning I was on a private flight to New York. Not Daniel's plane. Mine. Margaret had insisted. If you're going to move, she'd said, move decisively. The Delaware trust filings were public, but only if you knew exactly where to look. By noon I was seated in a quiet law office, documents spread out in front of me, my lawyer beside me, and a cold knot forming in my stomach. This trust, Margaret said, tapping the page, effectively removes you as a beneficiary. I stared at the words. How? I whispered. He restructured ownership, she explained. Moved assets into entities you don't directly control. Legally, it's sophisticated. Translation ruthless. And Claire? I asked. Margaret slid another document toward me. Claire's name appeared there. Not as an assistant. As a co-trustee. I laughed once. Hollow. She was never just his secretary, I said. No, Margaret agreed. She was his exit strategy. The next day Daniel called. He sounded cheerful. Elizabeth, he said. I miss you. The audacity almost impressed me. How's Paris? I asked. Productive, he replied. We're closing something big. With Claire? I asked. Another pause. Yes. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the Manhattan skyline. Daniel, do you love her? Silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. That's not relevant, he finally said. It was all the answer I needed. Did you ever love me? I asked. He sighed. Elizabeth, let's not do this now. No, I said calmly. Let's. I respected you, he said. I still do. The words landed like a slap. After the call ended, Margaret placed a hand over mine. He's going to underestimate you, she said. That's your advantage. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Claire. She called me that evening. Her voice was steady, but there was something brittle underneath. I think we should talk, she said. Do you? I replied. Yes, she said. Woman to woman. I almost laughed. We met in a discreet hotel lounge, neutral ground. She arrived early, posture perfect, eyes sharp. You're very calm, she observed. So are you, I replied. She didn't deny it. I never meant for it to happen like this, Claire said. That's funny, I said. Neither did I. She flinched just barely. You deserve to know the truth, she said. I already do, I replied. But go on. She hesitated, then spoke. Daniel didn't plan to leave you, she said. He planned to erase you. The word hit harder than I expected. He believes you were a liability, she continued. Too visible. Too human. I exhaled slowly. And you. I was useful, she said. Until I wasn't. I studied her. For the first time I saw fear. He's cutting you out too, I said. Her eyes snapped to mine. You know, she said. I do, I replied. The acquisition. The trusts. The shell companies. She swallowed. I thought I was protected, she said quietly. So did I replied. That was the moment something shifted between us. Not friendship. Alignment. Claire slid a folder across the table. Copies, she said. Everything I have. I opened it. Contracts. Emails. Evidence of insider trading. Foreign accounts tied to undeclared partnerships. Enough to bring Daniel down. Why give this to me? I asked. Because, she said. He thinks I'm disposable. I closed the folder. So are you, I said gently. If you don't help me finish this. Her jaw tightened. What do you want? She asked. The truth, I said. And your testimony. She didn't answer immediately. Then she nodded. That night, alone in my hotel room, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman looking back. She was sharper, colder, but she was awake. Daniel had built an empire on control, and now for the first time, he was losing it. When the masks fell in public, the first headline broke on a Tuesday morning. Tech titan Hale delays major acquisition amid internal review. It was cautious, polite, almost kind. By noon, the second headline appeared. Sources questioned governance at Hale Global. By evening, the tone had changed completely. Billionaire CEO faces scrutiny over undisclosed financial entities. I watched the news from Margaret's office, legs crossed, hands steady in my lap. The television showed footage of Daniel exiting a black SUV, jaw clenched, refusing to answer reporters' questions. For the first time in years, he looked small. He knows, Margaret said quietly. Yes, I replied. And he's panicking. Claire's testimony had landed exactly where it needed to, through regulators, not tabloids. The smartest kind of exposure. Controlled. Irrefutable. Daniel called me that night. He didn't bother with pleasantries. What did you do? He demanded. I protected myself, I replied calmly. You've destroyed everything, he snapped. I smiled faintly. No, Daniel. You did. The board meeting was brutal. I wasn't invited. That alone told me everything. By morning, Daniel's name had been removed, temporarily they said, from day-to-day operations. Stocks dipped. Partners hesitated. And suddenly, the man who once controlled every room he entered was being escorted. Claire called me from a secure line. He's furious, she said. Good, I replied. He knows I talked, she added. I'm not safe. You are, I said. Stay where you are. There was a pause. I never thought I'd be afraid of him, she admitted. Neither did I said. The gala happened anyway. Daniel insisted. A final attempt to prove dominance. The annual Hale Global Foundation Gala was a spectacle, crystal chandeliers, celebrity donors, orchestral music echoing through a historic Beverly Hills venue. I arrived alone. The room stilled when people recognized me. Whispers followed. That's her. The wife. Daniel stood near the stage, posture rigid. When he saw me, something dark flickered in his eyes. You shouldn't be here, he said when I approached. I'm still your wife, I replied softly. For now. You think this ends well for you? He hissed. I think it ends honestly, I said. He turned away. 10 minutes later, the truth walked in. Federal agents. Quiet. Efficient. The music stopped. The room held its breath. They approached Daniel. The whispers turned into gasps. I watched as they spoke to him calmly, too calmly. He tried to smile. Failed. Mr. Hale, one agent said, we need you to come with us. The cameras went wild. Flashbulbs exploded. And just like that, the empire cracked. The aftermath was chaos. Freezing of accounts. Resignations. Emergency board statements. Daniel didn't call me again. Not from jail. Not from his lawyers. Not at all. I filed for divorce the next morning. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Weeks passed. I moved into a smaller home by choice. Quiet. Private. Mine. Claire entered witness protection under a corporate agreement. We spoke once more. Thank you, she said. For what? I asked. For not destroying me, she replied. You destroyed yourself, I said gently. I just stopped you from destroying me too. The final settlement was sealed quietly. Despite Daniel's efforts, I walked away with far more than he ever intended. Not because of revenge, because I refused to disappear. On the day the divorce was finalized, I stood alone on a balcony overlooking the Pacific. The air smelled like salt and freedom. I wasn't a billionaire's wife anymore. I was something better. What he lost when he tried to replace me. The first morning after the divorce papers were signed, I woke up to silence. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of betrayal. The kind that felt earned. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, warming the hardwood floors of my new home. A modern, understated place overlooking the Pacific. No marble. No staff. No echoes of someone else's ambition in every room. Just me. For years, I had mistaken luxury for safety. I'd been wrong. Daniel was sentenced 6 months later. White-collar prison. Minimum security. A term short enough to soften headlines but long enough to stain reputations permanently. The media moved on quickly. They always do. But reputations don't recover the way headlines fade. He wrote me once. A letter. Handwritten. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the kitchen counter for 3 days untouched. When I finally did, his words felt foreign. Like they belonged to someone I once knew but no longer recognized. I never meant to hurt you. I was trying to protect what I built. You were never supposed to find out like this. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer. Some truths don't deserve a response. I rebuilt slowly. Not my image. My life. I took the foundation I'd once run in his shadow and restructured it under my own name. Focused on causes I cared about: education, women's financial literacy, legal aid for spouses erased by power. The irony wasn't lost on me. I started speaking not about Daniel but about visibility. About what happens when you stop being useful to powerful people. About the danger of silence dressed up as loyalty. People listened. One afternoon months later I ran into Claire. By accident. She was at a small cafe in Palo Alto, hair shorter, clothes simpler, anonymity clinging to her like armor. She froze when she saw me, then relaxed. "You look lighter," she said. "So do you," I replied. We sat for a moment sipping coffee, two women shaped by the same man in very different ways. "I thought replacing you would make me safe," she admitted quietly. "It never does," I said. She nodded. "I lost everything." I met her gaze. "You lost what was built on lies." She exhaled slowly. "And you?" she asked. "I found what was built on truth," I replied. We parted without drama. Some chapters don't need closure. The final twist came a year later. A journalist reached out, young, sharp, curious. "Did you know," she asked, "that the company survived because of a contingency clause you insisted on years ago?" I hadn't. Buried deep in early filings was a clause protecting minority stakeholders, something I pushed for when Daniel had called it unnecessary. It saved thousands of jobs when his assets were frozen. The board acknowledged it publicly. Not with fanfare. With respect. On the anniversary of the airport call, I booked a flight. Not to Paris. To Ohio. I visited my parents' old house. Walked streets where ambition hadn't yet cost me anything. Sat on the porch as the sun dipped low. I thought about the woman I'd been. The woman who'd believed love meant shrinking. I smiled. People still ask me about Daniel. What it felt like. What I lost. I tell them the truth. I lost a role, I say. Not myself. Because the moment he chose to replace me, he gave me back everything he'd taken without realizing it. My voice. My agency. My future. The plane took off at dusk. As the city lights faded below, I felt something close to gratitude. Not for the betrayal, but for the awakening.